Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk to you about is a Christian course that I took 25 years ago. God, time flies. It goes by just in a blink. Anthony Hopkins said that in the movie Meet Joe Black. But this course, the Alpha course, was first created in Great Britain, and the main speaker was a British solicitor, in other words, a lawyer or an attorney, who was an atheist. And I can't remember what happened, but something happened to him on the road to Damascus, and he became a very strong Christian. What does the road to Damascus mean? I think well, even in my generation, a lot of people weren't churchgoers. I knew people at my school that didn't go to church, and so would have no idea about what the road to Damascus would be. And I'm sure that people younger than me, which is probably most of you that watch me, because I've got gray in my beard and you probably don't. The road to Damascus is the story of I don't know for sure, but I'm going to say an atheist. His name was Saul of Tarsus, and Saul was a tax collector, and he very prejudiced against Christians. And he went out of his way to persecute Christians. And, well, if you go to the Christian Bible and you read Acts, that is where you're going to find the story of Paul. Oh, that's what happened to him. One time Saul of Tarsus was on the road to Damascus, Syria, and Damascus, Syria, as you probably heard that name, it's still around as a city. And he was on the road, and a great bright light hit him, and so the story goes, that's how he met Jesus. And afterwards, he was a changed man, and he changed his name from Saul to Paul. Paul is considered one of the apostles of Jesus, but he was not the original group of Jesus' disciples from before he was crucified. So it's a very strange story because he was really an outsider. And this is really the story of the British solicitor who went from being a devout atheist to becoming a devout Christian. And in a series of videos that he made on old-fashioned videotape, he talked about what he knew about Christianity. I think the denomination that he would have belonged to would have been Church of England or Anglican. And in the United States, the same church is known as Episcopalian. It's pretty much a middle-of-the-road Christian church. It's not what you would call a fundamentalist, Bible-thumping, fire and brimstone kind of Christianity. Very middle-of-the-road. So it's such it was very progressive. The first women to be allowed to be priests, Anglican priests, were in Church of England. And they were the first ones to recognize, as far as I know, I mean, there could have been some community churches, probably were some independent churches, but as far as being a major denomination, definitely one of the earliest ones to recognize that gays were okay to come to church, and one of the first, I'm sure, that were allowing gay marriage. Anyways, that's sort of beside the point because they didn't talk about that at the Alpha course. And I took this course at more of a fundamentalist church than the Church of England. Because I remember at that church going to the bathroom and seeing a sign on the wall where they were advertising for gay people to come and go for some kind of therapy so that they wouldn't be gay anymore. So I'm going to say it was probably Baptist church. Okay, so let's go back to the solicitor. Well, he went on, and it was, but they would show the videotape, and then in small groups, you would go through a list of questions that were submitted for you to discuss. And one of the topics that the guy at my table kept on going on about was, what about this Trinity? What about this Trinity of God? And he kept asking this, and he wore glasses like this, black glasses, and he kept, taking his glasses off and say, well, what about the Trinity? And it wasn't joking. He was really serious. He wanted to know, and no one there could explain it. I couldn't explain it to him. But this was like some big major thing that he'd come to try and figure it out, and no one there could teach him. But getting back to the solicitor, I don't remember anything at all about what he said for, I don't know, maybe it was probably, maybe it was six classes, maybe 6 videotapes. All I remember is the solicitor talking about how much higher Jesus was than us on the spiritual ladder. And he made it out so that Jesus was so much more advanced than us. He just put his hands up, and it was just like, you're way down here. You're way down here at the bottom of the screen. And Jesus was so far up, he'd be up at the top of the screen. And what he was trying to get at is that, reading between the lines, you ain't Jesus and you ain't never gonna be Jesus. So get it out of your head. Jesus is special, and you're basically always going to be an advanced monkey. And as for the rest of the Alpha course, I can't remember anything about it, only that this solicitor wanted us to know that that's what he thought we were, a bunch of monkeys. Changing hats and going on. So, for many more years, that was sort of the end of my adventure in Christianity. I followed some other paths, and they were more metaphysically inclined. What does that mean? More like, we don't believe that Jesus is that far above you, little monkey. In fact, we're going to teach you how to think like Jesus did, so you can do the things that Jesus did too. And this general category of teachings is known as New Thought. And it's not that new. These teachings probably started in the late 1800s and got really going up up until maybe 1960. And then they kind of disappeared in a lot of places. There were independent churches pretty well in every city that were teaching New Thought. But the teachings in most cities that I've been to The churches have disappeared. So does it work, what they teach you? Well, they teach you a form of metaphysics. In other words, how to understand reality and how to bend reality to your will. And that's basically a teaching of New Thought. And whether it works or not, they always had a catch. And the biggest catch was they called it divine right timing, which basically said it's up to the divinity in the end, or it's up to God in the end, to decide when something that you're asking for is going to happen. So it wasn't really, like being Harry Potter and having magic happen instantaneously. It wasn't that kind of thing at all. And long before Abraham Hicks became popular for teaching people how to manifest things, there was the New Thought. Did I ever manifest anything using New Thought techniques? No, 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 no. But it was a very interesting teaching all the same. And but I think probably the reason why you don't see these New Thought churches anymore is because a lot of people tried it out and came to the conclusion it don't work. And so the popularity of it all disappeared. I often wonder why traditional churches are still around because, does going to church get you anything at all? It gets you a lot of, biblical information and, I don't go to those churches other than maybe for a funeral or a wedding. Oh, yes, someone wants to point out they often want you to donate when they pass around the donation plate, and they will, well, some of them, probably most of them, will talk about tithing. In other words, the church needs money and you need to donate 10% of your paycheck all the time. They call it first fruits or priming the pump. And even the New Thought church minister had this idea that, if you want to get more money, then you should donate money to this church, which is essentially donating money to God, and that will prime the pump. Priming the pump is an old saying that comes back from the days when you used to have a manual pump that would pump water from a well, and you had to have some water for your pump at the pump head at the top of the well in order to get a good suction going on the pump. So this is what they told you. And is it true? I'm sorry, God doesn't need money. So it's about paying the people at the church. And you see huge congregations of certain televangelists that's been going on forever. And, the televangelists talk to you through the television in the olden days. And it always say multiple times, and you need to cut us a check, mail it in. And we still have these large televangelists. Somebody wants me to tell you Joel Osteen is one of them. Anything in particular about him? What is he, a preacher or a movie star? Does praying with Joel get you closer with God? It's insanity. It's insanity. These people have enormous egos and they love the money to pour in so they can live like they are a movie star. So ignore these people. And they're very good at guilting you. And that's what fire and brimstone kind of preachers are all about, like Seventh day Adventists. And they say the world is coming to an end and you better get good with God. In other words, you better be here listening to me as I scare you into giving me money because the end of the world is coming. Is that relevant today to all these stories about the end of the world coming from this virus? I just had one person forward me a story apparently from a Chinese scientist in Wuhan. And I've seen the same kind of story before for previous examples where people were predicting the end of the world. It's an insider from, Wuhan and in the Chinese military science department. And, the Chinese built this hospital in 10 days. And really what it is, it's a crematorium, just like what Nazi Germany had for the Jews. People would go into these places and they wouldn't be nursed. They would just wait for them to die, and then they'd haul them off to a giant oven. So these kind of scare stories that are going around, like chain letters, what do I think of them? Yeah, they're. I do these kind of stories here on this channel. I call them stories for girls and boys, ghost stories, campfire stories, and stories for boys and girls. They're good stories to scare you with. But are we coming to the end of humanity because we're going to be wiped out by a plague? Well, if you believe mainstream media, yes. Do I look frightened? Or have I come to accept my inevitable death? Moving along. What else can I tell you about metaphysics? I wear this hat from time to time. It says, "You see me." Who don't you see? You don't see the hand of God. Do I believe in God? I leave it kind of open. You might call me an agnostic. An agnostic is someone who says, yes, I've heard the stories about there is God, and I've heard the atheists say there is no God, and it's not that I can't make up my mind, it's just that on the basis of the evidence that I see, I'm not going to give you an opinion that there is or isn't. Could go either way, perhaps. If I'm leaning anywhere, I'm going to say probably there is some organizing intelligence that works with consciousness. How it all got started, no idea. So you can definitely put me in the camp of, I don't even know if I would go agnostic. I would basically say, depending on the situation, I could even be an atheist. Because I'm an actor and I can take on these belief systems and these evidence systems and work within them and then jump out of the box and be something else. Someone wants me to go back and talk about the Baptist Church with the Alpha program with the little sign in the bathroom saying, are you a homosexual? We have courses for you to change you. How do I feel about that? And how did I feel about that way back in, I don't know, what did I say, 20 years ago? I wouldn't attend a Baptist church or a Roman Catholic church because they teach hatred. And one thing I do know about Jesus, the only thing he hated were the money changers, which are basically, are they bankers or are they capitalists? Some people say the reason he hated them was because they set up their shop inside the temple, and he would have been okay outside of the temple. People would say his family was were made of, or the family was in the carpentry trade, and I'm sure that they did carpentry for money. But if you look at history of it all, from newer information, perhaps the Dead Sea Scrolls from the 1950s, it turns out that Jesus belonged to a sect known as the Essenes, and they were pretty much like what you would find in Israel. I'm not so sure they still do it, but they were used to be very famous for something called a kibbutz, which is a communal community. Was it communism? No. Why not? Because the government wasn't involved. But communal living, maybe on the west coast of North America, they had certain First Nations tribes that lived in longhouses. I'm not really familiar with that, but it seems like this is what they lived in, the Essenes group home, where they shared the work and they lived together. So did they charge money? I don't know. How am I going to find out? So, based upon this information, I don't think that Jesus was a capitalist. I don't think he really was too much more than someone who wanted to learn a lot. Moving along. Who don't you see? I said you don't see the hand of God. Because unless you've got a Jesus person, they're not going to look like a human. But the hand of God can use humans to do things, if you are going to go down the idea that there is a God. What else can make humans do what they do? Voodoo. People will do things if you aim a gun at them. Let's continue. Where else can we find people like Jesus who have done miracles? Well, the Catholic Church is always making saints, and they say the saints were doing miracles. But usually, well, I'm sure what they would say is, I don't know what they say. I'm not a Catholic. But was it the saint? Yeah, I think they say the saints did it. So, if that's true, then somewhere along the line, the Catholics have admitted that people besides Jesus can do miracles. So if we come back to the solicitor in the Alpha course, him saying that we're all a bunch of monkeys and only Jesus can do miracles is a lie. So I'm going to give you some more examples of people who can do Jesus-like miracles. This book by Carlos Castaneda, a separate reality. This is about the, well, today you would probably call them sorcerers, or brujos, which is like a Mexican name for a witch. This book, Autobiography of a Yogi, there's stories of people who do miracles in India. This book about Patanjali, he's a very ancient story about him as a, I suppose he would probably be something to do with Hindu. And this story book is about advanced states of consciousness and people doing miraculous things. Some of the, well, I don't know. You can get these books. Next one, I was talking to you about New Thought, and this book, this is an old book called Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. It's a New Thought book about how to get rid of doctors and heal yourself. This book, Life and Teachings of Masters of the Far East. These masters would probably be northern India and perhaps into maybe parts of China, Gobi Desert. The next one, more modern book, Breaking the Death Habit by Leonard Orr. I mean, if breaking the habit of dying is not a miracle, I don't know what is. This one, The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden. He says everything is possible. So this one was Bridging Time, Space, Miracles, and Belief. Greg Braden, another more modern kind of guy. This one, What Jesus Taught in Secret. He has another book called The Secret Science Behind Miracles. So another miracle teaching book. Max Freedom Long was a European who went to Hawaii to learn from the Hawaiian kahunas who he believed could do miracles. And this is a modern book I just got out of the library. Cured. The Life-Changing Science of Spontaneous Healing by Jeffrey Rediger, MD. Apparently he's a medical doctor. Cured. So that's a sample of, is it evidence? It's evidence that people will buy books and publishers will publish books upon hearing about miracle teachings. Do any of them actually work? Well, I mean, this one, he's got documented cases of miraculous healings. He's a medical doctor. I don't know. I mean, it's not like they show you a videotape of someone being healed, but Greg Braden was talking about someplace in China where they made a film of someone being cured of cancer by, now is it quackery? In other words, it's just bullshit and bafflegab? That I can't tell you. So, there's certainly a market for people who are interested in miracles and learning how to do them. That's all I want to talk about. It's been half an hour. Thank you for watching. If you like the way I do my presentations, with my hat tricks, and the oddball stuff I talk about, please subscribe and share me out to people who you think might be interested, and share me out to people who you think would never be interested, and say, I dare you to listen to this guy. In the end, I think probably a lot of people watch Joe Rogan, especially the younger people. And I don't watch Joe Rogan, but I've heard of him many times because he talks about things like DMT and ayahuasca and God knows what else. I just don't have the time to listen to a lot of videos, and I spend more time talking to my phone and putting them up here because I rather produce this stuff than watch somebody else's, because before I got old and gray in my beard, that's what I used to do, is read all these books. And in those days, there weren't too many videos. It was primarily books. When I was in 8th grade, that's when they first introduced computers into schools. So, and there was no internet in those days. The computers were pretty cool. Even today, if you went back and looked at, it was a Commodore PET computer was the standard that our school board used, and not every child was able to go into the computer class. Basically, they thought if you were good at math, they would ask you if you wanted to go into computers, and we didn't know what a computer was. We didn't know. We might have had basic, no, we didn't know what they were. And I remember them asking me, do you want to learn about computers? And I didn't know what it was, and I don't think I showed any enthusiasm because I didn't know what it was. And then later on, I found out that some people were in this class, and I was like kind of pissed off. It's like, that sounds really cool. And then so I spoke up to somebody, and they put me in the class. And lo and behold, I found out that yes, there is. You really don't need, even back in those days, to know, be really good at mathematics or in order to learn about computers. So the teachers didn't have a very good idea either. But those pet computers, we played amazing computer games on them, and it's just trying to illustrate that I've been around a long, long time. I've seen a lot of things, and I try and tell you things because of my advanced age, the way things have changed on this planet, and the way that things haven't changed on this planet since I was young. Consistently, I'm looking at my time, and I'm at 35 minutes, so I'm going to break here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.